Could you please provide us an overview of Daily Hunt?
Dailyhunt is the largest tech media platform in India. Today we have about 300 million monthly active users and there are about 50 million daily active users accessing the app. The content is served in 15 different languages to the user, and today we work with more than 3,000 plus partners, and there are close to about 30,000 plus stringer community who help us with the content on a daily basis, and we call it PGC, which is the professionally generated content. The secret sauce of the company is our personalization. So we run one of the largest personalization stack in India, which goes through billions of data on a daily basis to sort of create the content which is relevant for you based on your needs and ask. That makes us different.
How has the underlying technology evolved in order to manage this significant growth of user base?
Yeah, we start as a traditional infrastructure, the typical monolithic architecture. Over a period of time, the adoption started happening because of the traffic factors. Because since 2013 is when we saw this incremental growth in traffic, and the usage is when we realized that we need to move faster than what we anticipated. So moving from a traditional bare metal to a cloud and eventually moving to a hybrid. And today we run multi-cloud and multi-hybrid networks to run our business. On top of it, so today we support close to about 70 different open source technologies. And not only that, we in fact contribute back to the open source community at large. So we publish a lot more white papers of late in terms to help the other startup companies to come up to speed in terms of the challenges which we typically go through when you do deployments or coding and so on and so forth. From a traditional infrastructure perspective, we've started on bare metals and eventually moved into hypervisors like VMware and stuff like that. And also parallelly, one of our endeavors was to see the cost at bay, at the same time the performance, and that's when we moved to a lot more OpenStack or open source world technologies, including the containers. One of the key, the realization in the recent past is on the performance, is when our decision to move away from a Java-based platform to a Golang.
Why did you move from cloud-only environment to a hybrid environment?
Back in 2014, we were running on a pure play public cloud environment. With the growth in data, what we've realized that there are direct performance impact is when we thought of solutions beyond to a public cloud. Because what we were seeing is that an incremental growth in terms of I/O, an incremental growth in terms of CPU, memory, hard disk, or even for that matter, the east-west traffic. And typically when you run such workloads on a, it's not that it won't work on a public world, but then you have economics don't work well all the time, is when we realized that there is a need to look beyond to the traditional cloud hosting, and we adopted and embraced a hybrid environment. The challenge we faced on a public cloud was predominantly around the performance, and secondly was on the cost economics. The internal challenge predominantly for us was on how do we move our apps to more of a cloud native. So these were the key challenges we battled at that point in time. At the same time, how do we sort of structure our apps? Our concurrence was we will keep all the data stores in the private world and move which is anything which is loosely lying or serving, which I call it the web serving layer, into a public world.
What level of optimization did you achieve from this migration?
Something which I love most is working with the partner ecosystem. We work with pretty much everyone in the market. I think it gives a lot of luxury to sort of experiment, innovate, renovate, I say it. Being a part of the CAF, which is the Customer Advisory Forum for most of the OEMs, you do have access to their labs, you do have access to the engineering where we work together, because the kind of workloads what we are seeing is slightly insane. So we need to work a lot more closely along with the partner ecosystem to define those matrices, define those KPIs actually. So one for me is the advantage of working with the larger ecosystem, because where you have control upon the entire environment, how do you want to define your roadmap, how do you want to define your technology stack, and so on and so forth. So that's one benefit I see it as. The second optimization what we have done is around the whole telemetry. Typically when you handle close to about 15 to 20 billion traffic in a day to your platform, every data sets become very, very critical, and your ability to monitor that and act proactively becomes very critical. So we started building a telemetry along with the partner ecosystem, so as to ensure the fact that we are up on time every time, and we are monitoring all our critical parameters. I think that's a luxury you get typically when you work on a partner ecosystem, when you work on a private or a hybrid environment, because you are building it everything ground up literally. Third is definitely the cost economics, which I've been sort of emphasizing upon. What I've seen, you need to understand the fact that your decision to move is not always very easy. If your app is very IO centric, then the strategy is different. Your app is very network centric, then your strategy is different. But typically any app where the workloads are fairly high, I would say that typically moving from a public to a private can bring you cost optimization to the tune of 3 to 4x.
How did you select the right partner for Daily Hunt?
One of my asks to the partner ecosystem was that, at any point in time, I run more than 1 million IO. My average block size is in the range of about 128K, which is fairly high, right? So knowing the fact that hardware is a commodity, I think what matters is the performance. So my call out was very clear to the partner ecosystem, saying that, hey, you have the choice to build the technology you want, whether you want to go with a traditional SAN or you want to build an HCI, the hypervisor of your choice, and so on and so forth. But I'm looking for quality of service. I'm looking for performance. So my ask was that I need the performance at any point in time beyond a certain number, right? My ask was my east-west traffic should be less than sub-millisecond at any point in time. So this was a challenge which I had given back to the partner ecosystem. So it took me about 8 months close to freeze on my partner finally who fits into my ecosystem. My point number 2 was about the culture, because we are a young organization. I think the average age in the organization is 27. So it's very important that the partner ecosystem also will get connected, because the agility what we follow in the organization, or I would say, is a lot of interrupt-driven work happens in the organization. So it's important that the partner ecosystem get connected very well with us. So that was my second call out. How do we align as two different organizations as one? My last call out was around the cost. One of the key challenges for any startup is around the cost, the outflow. How do they manage it actually? So we need to work and build models which make sense to business actually. So gone are the days where we talk about pay as you grow and stuff like that. I think the demand is how do we create models which are outcome based. Demand is how do we build models which are maybe traffic based or revenue based, and so on and so forth.
What advice would you give to the startups that are on their technology modernization journey?
My advice would be not to get carried away by all these buzzwords, but I think it's extremely important for you to understand what's your business demand. Where are you going to be in the next, let's say, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year time frame? I think those input needs to be considered before you embrace any technology, because end of the day, you don't want to be in a situation where you embrace the technology and the investment what you made for the technology is not getting aligned to the business outcome, right? So that could be a completely misfit actually. So you need to understand what the business demands are. And I'll give you an example. What we did back in Daily Hunt a few years back is of aligning IT to business, where our effort was to understand what's the revenue per customer. So we call it a page view. So we defined revenue per page view per customer. In parallel, we build up a matrix which is from a IT infrastructure cost factor. So what's my cost for serving a page to the customer, or what's my cost for handling one transaction? So once you define that matrix, it becomes much easier and simpler. No matter what technology you embrace, you know that your outflow or your cost per infrastructure is going to be so and so. So once you define that, it becomes a easy cakewalk. So in summary, I would say this, that understand your business needs, understand where you want it to be in the next. So market demands are extremely challenging. You need to understand what the market is asking for. So what you want to do in the next 1, 3, 5 years, and identify the right partner who can actually embrace you with in that journey. I think that would be my advice to anyone. Daily Hunt partnership with HP has been almost a decade old now. We have done many turnkey projects together in the last 10 years. Our engagement with Arkan has been almost 3 years now. What I love about engaging with Arkan is that our decisions are never unilateral. It's all we engage, we discuss, we take a joint decisions together. So it's been a lot of bilateral communication happening between both the teams. And Arkan was extremely helpful in structuring deals, which made a lot of business sense for us. So it's been a wonderful journey in the last 3 years, and I'm looking forward for many more.